Preparations for what is to come. Well, I certainly do hope people can do your best. Listen, before I tell you these preparations, I'm going to tell you something. Anything you're not able to do, right? Anything you're not able to do is not required of you. What is required of everybody, by the confirmation of truth that is internally in them, is to prepare for things based upon what the Lord reveals to you in truth. Okay? What the Lord reveals to you in truth, you're accountable for. In other words, if He's giving you an ability to do something, you are accountable for doing that thing. If He did not give you the means nor the ability to do something, that's not your burden. You are to be 100% of yourself, giving of 100% of yourself in all things. Of much known, much required. What is known of you is certainly required of you. Anything that you cannot do, then your Savior, then your Lord and Savior, your Father in heaven, will tend to. All right? But just like you can tie your shoe, you can pray all day. The Lord's not going to come down and tie your shoe. Is He? Is He going to do that? What I'm saying is anything you're able to do, do it. Based upon the truth that is given you. If I say that everybody should have this or that, the bottom line is, what does the Lord say that you need? Let me give an example. Let's just say we live on a mountain, right? We live on a mountain, and it's a volcano. So we have half of COT living on the west side, the other half living on the east side, right? Somebody goes to the top of the mountain and say, hey, this whole thing is going to blow. Everybody needs to get off the mountain. Now, this mountain is really high. It takes 3 days to get off the mountain, but we only have 1 day. But the person says, hey, everybody needs to get off the mountain. All right? So you have some people listen to that. They don't listen to anything else. They start running off the mountain. But you have some that lived on the east side, and they're saying, wait a minute. Everybody has to get off the mountain. They heard the trigger, but then something in them says, go to the west side. Right? Some of the people who heard internally, it was a truth, confirmation truth in them that said, go to the west side. After they heard the instruction to flee, they go to the west side. Some can't decide what to do. And they stay there and say, I don't know what to do. So now you have some running away from the first call that says, flee the mountain, go down the mountain, get away from the mountain. Then you have some they heard, go to the west side of the mountain. Those in the west, they heard the call too. Some of them also fled, but something told them internally, stay still. Here's what happens. The whole east side of the mountain blows, not the west side. The west side shakes, all things are intact, no problem. But the east side blows. Those running down the mountain are overtaken by pyroclastic flows. They can't escape. Those running down the mountain on the west side are overtaken by the pyroclastic flows that go to the sides. Those who stayed on the west side at the peak are untouched. All they got was a little shaking. Right? The same guy who said flee the mountain is dead. Died in his own advice. Here's the moral of this story. You're going to hear many things, but it's always good to have your ears open to the Holy Spirit and the truth that is within you. That when it is time to do something, you move. And when it is not time to do something, you stay still. Because it could be life or death to you. And in this case, life or death to your soul. All right? Life or death to your soul. That means I don't have the final word on what you must do. The Lord does. Not one man on earth has a final word for what you must do. The Lord knows what you must do. And because He said He would never leave you nor forsake you, He will instruct you. Okay? So as I go through these things, I can only advise. But you must have your ear open to the Lord. Because if you don't, you're going to follow the advice of man, and by that man's words you may die, even though that man may have been sincere of heart. All right, keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind. Because of these waves and the instabilities in the atmosphere, because of the interaction of particles with the atmosphere and the earth, and the heavier particles will settle to earth, we know that the winds are going to begin to build. Because those particles will also bring with them more and more heat upon all the planets. We know earthquakes and volcanism will start to shift the earth and change the soil. There'll be a physical change in the soil. Some soils will no longer support plant life. No longer. This is happening slowly, and it's not being corrected. So the droughts will continue. They're going to continue. All the while, the heavens are going to become quite unstable. Here's why. You're going to notice two things in the heavens. Number one, a great influx of meteor activity. All right? Cinders coming to Earth. These same cinders will heat up the ground even more. But in the Earth itself, because the ground is heating, it will begin to set off, gas vats where gas is. It's going to heat those up, which means the pressure inside, the natural gas, holes in the earth. Imagine that being heated up, that gas being heated up. So then all it needs is to blow a little top, and then it ignites and pops up all over the place. Oil that's underneath the ground will be heated up as magma continues to flow up, and it too may ignite. So then that will be fires from below the earth and above the earth. Already right now in the cities, the infrastructure is failing. The gas pipes are very old. That's very dangerous. It is only God's grace that fire has not started in many places, New York being one. Its piping is so incredibly old. They're not expected to get all that repaired until, 2100. And the pipes go down deep, and they're leaking all over the place. With the influx of cinders coming from the atmosphere, which are, little rocks and little debris, right? Coming into the atmosphere, on fire, hitting various parts of the ground, you're going to have surface fires all over the place. Do you imagine surface fires in the winter? In the dead of winter, surface fires. And then in the summertime, it just makes conditions that much more volatile. You're paying attention to the fires they have now? Have you heard the words of the firemen say they're burning twice as hot as they ever have? People have not listened to what they're saying. These firemen are saying, I have not known a fire to burn that hot. We're talking about people who have careers as firefighters are saying they have not known a fire to be so hot. And I'm telling you, there's a physical change in the earth taking place. Fires just don't all of a sudden burn hotter for no reason. There's a physical change in the earth, an elemental change in what the fire is burning in the first place. I ask you this, what is in the atmosphere that is causing the fire to burn hotter? You see, there are concentrations in the atmosphere. There are certain people in certain areas finding it very difficult to breathe. Very difficult to breathe. Almost choking at points, like they can't get enough oxygen. These people don't have bronchitis, lung problems. They don't have asthma and things of that nature, but they're finding it very hard to believe. Very hard to breathe. So these fires will continue to ensue. Canada, you're not free from these fires. You were shown that this year, and as the earth continues to heat, it's going to become worse, and the elements in the atmosphere are certainly starting to condense. There is a correlation between the volcanic activity and the vents that are leaking out into the air, and some of the new things coming into the atmosphere. Every time you see a rock, an unnamed rock, they say, ooh, one just passed us. We didn't know it was going to pass. It's always followed by some type of gas and debris. The gas is something they pass us without harm, but the gases frozen in these little bitty rocks normally enter into the atmosphere every single day. Tons of space debris enters into the Earth's atmosphere. You guys aware of that every single day? A lot of them burn off in the atmosphere, therefore the substance in them is then let loose in the atmosphere, in the upper atmosphere. The heavy particles then, eventually over the course of time, trickle down to the surface, but the rest stay airborne. Are you aware of that? So then, as these small little things begin to come into the solar system with magnitude, our atmosphere will change. It will change. And that's every single day. And it's building up. This is a conflagration of things, of multiple things that are causing serious changes in the earth. Don't ever get in the mindset to try and, I'm not going to be proud and say, hey, I know the reason for all of it. That's foolishness. It doesn't matter what's causing it. It matters that it's affecting us, and we're going to have to deal with it. And that's why I told people to make sure your windows and doors are sealed up because of the gases, because of the ash. We're going to have to deal with an ash environment. I know I've said that a long time. Well, that should give you ample time to prepare yourselves. The best time to prepare the sealing of your home is the winter time. Now, you don't know if the Lord's going to make you move from that home or not. I'm just telling you to seal your doors and windows as best you can. The best time to tell that is in the winter time. If you feel cold air, then you should just mark that area and do what you have to do in the summertime. Put some caulking in there, some duct tape, whatever you have to do. Seal up your homes pretty good. That worked for two things. Number one, there could be an episode, and it likely will be in the event of war. We have terrorists all over the place, are planted in every single country. That some type of chemical, biological confrontation is going to take place. Now, the best place for you to be is inside of a sealed house if this were to happen. Because if you're outside, nobody's going to let you in their houses. A lot of people don't know that with chemical warfare. If you're caught outside, you're not supposed to go in anybody else's house. You're going to have to be decontaminated, which with some elements that means incinerated. Just so you know. Now, don't have the mindset of protecting your own life. These are things that happen, absolute conditions that are about to, that they're just about to take place. But if everything is sealed up, you can deal better in an ash environment and be a blessing to somebody else. You can. You can be a blessing. Fresh air will be like a blessing to someone. Even if it's stale, fresh air is fresh air. Absent the ash is poisonous. With even a little bit of ash, animal life will begin to suffer, drop over dead over the course of time, causing a stink you wouldn't believe. People will abandon cutting grass and everything else for fear of the dead animals that are out there and disease. So listen to what I'm telling you. If the animals begin to die because they're trying to eat vegetation in an environment, toxic environment like that, all the dead animals are out there. Nobody's going to be out there cutting the grass and everything else because of the stench and disease, because they're not going to go near a diseased body. All right? Some of these chemical agents look like a type of mist. Some of the issue nerve agent smells like poop, manure, something like that. Some of them smell sweet in the air. It's what they smell like. You release them, you smell something sweet, and then all of a sudden it's over for you. But the point of sealing your doors and windows, you can't be protected from everything like that, but you can take precautions from many other things because you're going to have a bug problem too. Now, if those who listened, who sealed their doors and windows, bugs can't enter in either. Right? Especially if you have those little bitty ants. Well, don't get mad at them. Find out where they're coming in at and seal that place up so they can't come through the same place twice. It's going to help you out because bug migrations are going to start. So will the rodent migrations. They're going to follow the bugs. They will be coming from the west to the east. They will be. And in the modeling, here's something funny. In the modeling, do you guys not know that a tsunami will likely come from the northeast? And not the east. The northeast. Which means parts of Canada. Now, I looked at some of the modeling data in Ontario and Quebec. We're just inundated by water. That's where the direction came from, down that way. Not from the East Coast going inward to the U.S., but coming from the north downward in a southwest trajectory. That way. Now, based upon that modeling, that means some type of event is being looked at above that area, folks. I'm just giving you a nugget here. A hint, some type of event above that area is being monitored. Okay? If that is the case, that can't be good. That's a lot of displacement. That would take a degree shift or something else to take place. I'm not saying that to absolutely take that, but these are probability models that are pretty accurate. They're really accurate. And so attention is being drawn in the north, right? That's near icy waters, correct? That's near disputed lands, correct? It's where it is. Well, that's where the simulations place a big wave coming down through the U.S., coming from the northeast. Just so you know, it's a nugget. To have your windows sealed, right, the little cracks in your windows and everything else, will certainly help your air quality. Now, a lot of people have been given this unction to get water. And you know what? Maybe it's not necessarily for drinking. To get water. To get water. A lot of people say, well, I can extract water out the air. No, you can't. The air is contaminated. You're not going to extract water anyway. Well, I can just filter it out. If it has ash or something like that, no, you won't, because it'll probably be laden with toxic chemicals. It could be irradiated. Could be irradiated. I know that in the summertime coming up, lots of people are going to need water because the heat's going to be tremendous. In some places, there will be a doubling of temperatures. It is my humble opinion that a small shift, a part of that 1 degree shift that will take place in about 1 year, will be known. It'll take about a year for this little 1 degree shift the first time, but the rest of the shift it's going to take will be something different. That means weather phenomena is severely going to change. You've got to be prepared for a different type of climate wherever you are. Also, droughts and floods, water inundation from the land coming up in your front yards, bug migrations and rodent migrations. You're going to have to deal with much more rodents than you thought you would. Many more bugs, flying insects will begin to migrate because the crops and everything else are going to be shifted, lost. This in conjunction with the arrogancy of mankind, because somebody is stoking a war, and a war will take place. We even know that biblically. We're going to be dealing with a ton of different situations. It doesn't matter where you are, but it really does matter where your soul is and where your heart is. When this begins to happen, sickness will follow the rodents. You already know that, right? Most of the rodents right now in the United States are infected with some type of awful thing. And there are a lot of new viruses being reintroduced into the environment. Why? I'll tell you why. Because some of the blue ice has been melting. Some of the viruses in the blue ice are coming back to life again. And when they come back to life, they're pretty big viruses too. These things are huge. These things are ginormous, big, giant viruses of which there is no immunity. Because they're ancient, but they've been frozen in the ice and they didn't die. They were surprised to find that these things come back to life. They're viruses nevertheless, but they're huge viruses. So if they begin to go into, affect the populace, there is no immunity to this. None. And you're looking at a virus that can be frozen and come back to life. See, on the space station, one thing they found was a virus taken up into space, let loose in the bitter cold and bitter heat and the radiation and everything else, that these things thrive and become 700% more potent in that type of environment. That's why they have to decontaminate upon coming to Earth, truthfully. Thank God that things do burn up in the atmosphere. Can you imagine if things did not burn up in the atmosphere? But we're going to face certain things surviving coming from the atmosphere. It's also believed that viruses do not come from this planet. They don't come from Earth. I know you're thinking about ET, but they don't believe viruses come from Earth. It's almost a universal consensus right there. And believe viruses come from Earth. They really do flourish in space, but they need a host to survive. They need a host, but they don't think they come from Earth. They think they take advantage of the hosts here on Earth, and they're always falling with the tons of material that come from space. They know this because some of the viruses have these, they found, let's just give an example. There were some microscopic little, looked like BBs that were laden with viruses inside the BB, but the BB was sitting inside of a meteorite. And after they dug it up and saw the little BBs, they looked inside the BB, cutting those in half, whatever they did, and it was laden full of viruses. Like a virus soup was in that thing, right? There you go. So they found those, and they can't blame it on the satellites either, because these rocks are very old. They just never cut in them that far. When they did, they found these little BBs. That happened a few years back. Well, it's about 15 years back. So they find those, and viruses are in there. Not to mention, as the Earth heats, right, you do have water melt-off going on in both the poles. And things that were frozen in that ancient ice being released back into the ocean. Life forms are altering right now, right? You know that term, you are what you eat? Well, sea life is eating things. There's an ancient type of plankton that's been reintroduced back into the Atlantic Ocean. And nobody seems to know how that happened. An ancient plankton? Are you kidding? I mean, that's the basis. Isn't that the basis of the food chain? Plankton for sea life? Right? But an ancient type has been reintroduced. Surely it's going to start changing the physicality of the fish itself. So, and how their young are being born is going to affect their young. So what we see is a reintroduction of things that are very old, things that have been here before. Right? Things that have been here before are coming out again. Are you ready for that? Because it's just we're living in this time where things have become quite unstable. Most people are not prepared for the small things, like a perpetual fog. Most people are not prepared to see the sun obscured every day of their life. Most people are not prepared for the water downpours that will just continue to take place. Now think of this, if the water is pouring down like that, what do you think the snow is going to do? Most people are not prepared for these things. Because truly we've been spoiled. And then in October, all of us are going to get a wake-up call. Because we're going to find out exactly what elements are in what. After that takes place, and we're going to wait around for that December thing so we can narrow down what we're going to be like in a wait phase. In the meanwhile, you do know that in the month of November, we could have another problem. Because people are changing. The sun is going to continue to do things to the magnetosphere, and CERN is going to continue its operations to increase certain things. They're trying to control the magnetosphere. I'm going to tell you what I believe about the magnetosphere. You ready? You ready for this? If somebody could control holes in the magnetosphere, they could effectively hold an entire country hostage. Because if they could pierce a hole in the magnetosphere over a country, and the people would no longer be in that magnetic field, they could effectively break the neurological connections of any place on Earth they so desired. Isn't that funny? All right, now it gets creepy. We got to talk about the darkness. Can't talk about CERN without talking about it. You guys associate CERN with darkness and things. It does have a mental effect on people, but what they're doing is speculative at best. Now, there have been some good people that came forward with some absolute facts about CERN. Right? None of it is complete because we didn't build the facility. All right, we didn't build the facility. I didn't build it. People know small portions or are convicted to believe in certain things, but I'm going to just can I put my 2 cents in there? I'll just put my 2 cents in there. But the first thing you have to understand before you even go into CERN is darkness itself. What is darkness? Who knows what darkness is? What do you guys think darkness is? Darkness, what is darkness? Darkness, that word darkness was deemed from the beginning. So what is it? Songbabe says absence of light. Okay, let's go to Genesis real quick to prove a point. Can we go there? Real quick, prove a point. I'll show you what darkness is. I'll show you the preface of darkness by the book of Genesis so that so that everybody knows. Okay, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light, that it was good. And he divided the light from the darkness. Stop. What do you think he's talking about? You know what he's talking about? I'll show you what he's not talking about. Some people say, well, that's the sun, no, that's not what he's talking about. Because if you read further in the chapter, it says this in 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. Well, wait a minute. I already thought the light and the dark were divided. No, that's not the sunlight. That's not the starlight he was talking about in the beginning. Remember when Jesus said, when it was said in the book of John, that Jesus, right, being the Word, is the light of men, that we are children of the light, that we're not partakers of the darkness. There is no joining of the light and the dark itself. Remember that? Do you remember that? The same light and dark used in that context is this light and dark in the beginning of Genesis. Light, dark, good, evil, right? That's what that light and dark means. It has nothing to do with the starlight. You see that over in Genesis 1:14 going forward. And the sunlight and moonlight, that's Genesis 14, Genesis 1:14 going forward. This is talking about light and darkness, good and evil, chaos and order, things of that nature. That's what that's talking about. So in order to understand darkness, you must understand that's the first thing God made separation with. First thing he did was what? What did he do? He separated the light from the darkness. So they're separate, not together. They are separate. So now you have a separation of good and evil, right? So what is the darkness? Is it a monster? Is it knowledge of a monster? Let me tell you what true darkness is. If you understand what darkness is, then you can walk in the light. If you don't understand what darkness is, you'll always be a part of it. I'm going to make it very simple. Darkness are your negative thoughts. That's what they are. Darkness, your negative thoughts. You know, when you're walking around, you say, oh, this is never going to work. That's darkness. That's you allowing darkness to enter into your life. When you desire those things that are negative, you desire darkness. It was written in the Bible that Jesus is light. Jesus never spoke defeating words, but people do. See, when you say, well, I just don't think God's going to do that, what you're doing is you're agreeing with darkness about the Lord. That's what you're doing. You're in agreement with darkness. Thus you have spoken your future every day of your life. Listen, your life is a culmination of the words you have spoken into your life. Do you know that? Some of you say, well, this situation's never going to end, and sure enough, you've been in that situation for a long time. Some of you say, well, it's just never going to get better, and sure enough, the situation never gets better. Some of you are agents of darkness wanting to go to the light, but for the life of you, you keep speaking darkness. The truth of what we are in the words we speak. If you speak life, you are alive. If you speak death, you are dead. Did you know that? The identification of life and death is in your tongue. When you can't believe Jesus for his words of light, you are siding with darkness against the Lord's words of light. It's that simple. That's what true darkness is. True darkness is the Charlie Brown syndrome. And it works. Within darkness, people plot things against another. Within darkness, chaos does ensue. Within darkness, true evil exists. And within the darkness are the lords of darkness. The character Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub, the devil. Placed in that same lineage, going against the light. Fear is not of light, but of darkness. Fear is what keeps man ignorant of the unknown. Thus, they teach somebody else to be ignorant of the unknown. Thus, both of them are in fear. Fear is a construct, an illusion. It's a tool of an agent of the dark, of the night, not of the children of light. See, a child of light can walk into the very heart of darkness and shed light upon the whole thing. There is no darkness to a child of light. That's why knowledge is never scary for them. They take in good and wholesome things and forever seek the light, but a child of the darkness takes in all things and becomes afraid. Fear causes a person to seek a dark path. Hope destroys it. Hope is just a glimmer into the source of light. But the negative words is the proof of an agent of darkness. Did not Jesus call us out of the dark to come into the light? Then only by his light, his words that he gave, can we be children of the light. If you don't speak his words, if you don't have his overcoming, you're an agent or child of darkness, though you were called to be a child of light. Is that simple enough for you? So that's what darkness is, negativity. The Charlie Brown syndrome, speaking death into your own situation and looking at other people's situations as being dead. What you are is a culmination of what you have spoken into your tomorrows. So as a man thinketh, so is he. And what do you speak? You speak what you believe. What you truly believe is what comes out of your heart. And what comes out of your heart are your words. In multitude. There's no hiding it. The truth has always been there. Now can you all see what light and darkness is? Can you see what darkness is? That's why it's not good to excuse the flesh. But can you see that? Now, in that darkness are agents that send dreams in the minds of people all the time. In the ancient times, they were given names. I'm not going to mention the names, but they're still at work today, and they have been at work. Jesus warned us about that. Of them, we have dominion over, but only through him. You can never have dominion over darkness if you're an agent of darkness. But you can have dominion. All light has dominion over darkness. There's no child of light that's curious of the darkness. Darkness is a mystery, something hidden. Nothing is hidden to a child of light. Nothing. Twainbo says, Mike, what about when the magnetosphere changes? Are we all going to change? No, but you will operate based upon your spirit, not your flesh. See, those moved by the flesh are prone to the flesh. If you're swayed by your emotions are going to be totally out of control. If you're one of those people who have to feel your way through life, your life is going to come tumbling down. We're supposed to be children of spirit led by truth, not the flesh, not emotion. Your emotions are going to fail you. Fear will consume the one who operates by their emotions. As it fails them now, so it will fail them then. Those who pierce through the veil prematurely, which is to keep the words of Christ, they don't operate by emotions, so emotions can fail them all day. I can be nervous in the body, scared to death in the flesh, but it will not affect me. That's only my flesh, and then fear leaves. It has no root in me, no place. My body can be tired. It can also ache and hurt, and I'll never confirm it, but walk through it. So it hurts. So what? What's that have to do with me? So it aches. Big deal. What does that have to do with me? Sickness does not alter my attitude, nor do bodily pains, nor does money, having it or not having it. But that's not so for many people because they have not grown. Many things alter people. Their attitudes change based upon their environment, so in fact they let their environment rule them. And all that's being governed by these entities of the darkness. Just as Jesus and the Father are of the light, so are demonic entities, trickster spirits, great intelligences, agents of darkness. They constitute that darkness. Nobody should ever want to dwell in that place, but they do. How do they keep this darkness going? Because this world, you know why this world is in darkness? Do you guys know why? Because humanity is not, they don't stand and rule this world. People are not ruling this world. I'm going to tell you how that works. This is where you think I've lost it. Just about everybody here has heard the stories of reptiles, right? Little lizard people, things of that nature, haven't you? Here's what you haven't heard. Most of the demons that have been exercised in the world appear as serpents. They appear as serpents. They appear as serpents because their cloak, their hiding place is exposed by the authority of Christ, and they are seen for what they are. Those absent Christ, they walk among, and they look like you and I. They cannot live in this realm absent blood, and that's why they have rituals. Through the blood, they can occupy this realm. They desire to rule over mankind. They desire to keep you in darkness. That's why blood is always spilled. Most murderers will tell you that a voice came to them and told them to kill people in certain locations. Most murderers said that an animal told them that, or a serpent told them that. A lot of times it's dogs speaking to people, right? They do that. Voices are telling people to stab someone to death. What's the correlation there? I'll tell you what, the serpents, that's the correlation. Where are they in the bowels of the earth? In the physical bowels of the earth? Yes, in the physical bowels of the earth. You see, experiments like CERN have allowed top scientists to understand the nature of matter itself, and they found out there's more to Earth than what people think. Just like there's more to you than what you think. You look in a mirror and you say, well, this is all I am. Wrong. You are everything. Yet you see nothing. You can't see your own light because your flesh eyes won't ever pierce darkness. Nevertheless, you are light. You're just in a shell. There's more to you than meets the eye. Right? Much more. In like manner, people are not sure of what they are. If they knew they were children of light, they would have no problem with the words of Christ. But they have a hard time believing the words of Christ because they're always in a struggle, in the battle against the flesh, against what their eye sees. They'll read the Word of God and then go get programmed by watching media on television, going back to things familiar which fight against the Word of God. True darkness is negativity, period. True darkness is your negativity. Darkness is no faith. To believe in the words of Christ, you have to see them. The only way to see them is to walk in the light. See where the proof is? If you don't walk in the light, you won't see, nor believe, nor latch on to the words of Christ. Because you're a child of the night. That's why a child of darkness can never hear Christ. That's why Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice. Why? He spoke words of light, so that only children of light would hear him. Didn't he? He is the truth, the way, and the life. No one goes to the Father except through him. It is through his way you go see the Father. Many people think that means through his name you're going to see the Father. Wrong. Through him. Well, who is he? He is the Word, through the words he spoke. To utilize the words he spoke is to see the Father. You can't pick and choose which words you utilize. You must live them. That's the difference. It's one thing talking about them. It's a whole nother subject. When you live within his words, operate your life by his words, then if you do that, why should doubt be in your heart? That means you can't accept the words of the one who gave you light in the first place. He called us from death to life. Why? Because darkness is death. That's why the tongue, the words you speak, have the power of life and death upon your own life. So negativity has no good ending. But the light surely is life. L-I-F-E. The light surely is life. All other things are death. If you're about to die, you might be grumpy. You might do all manner of things, but if you have life in you, you're very thankful. And guess what? A person who is alive sees the living. What do you see? Death or life? Those of life see the living. Of course they see dead things too, but they're here for the living. Remember when Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead? Remember when he said that? It was kind of a cold statement, didn't he? Oh, let the dead bury the dead. That's what he said, didn't he? Why? Because when you are alive, you see life. That's what you see, life, L-I-F-E, when you're alive. When you're dead, you see death, D-E-A-T-H, death. That's what you see. And what you see is what you ponder, and what you ponder is what you talk about. That's your conversation. What is your conversation, death or life? Think of that next time you're on Facebook talking to your friends or anything at your family or whatever. Are you speaking death or life? Speaking death or life is not throwing an incantation on somebody saying, yes, you're going to live. That's not what it is. The majority of your conversation, what does it involve? Does it involve life or does it involve death? Because true darkness, many men don't even see. They were born into it. How can they see it? How can anybody see darkness unless they break free from it? Many people say, I know what the darkness is, and they don't. They're Charlie Brown themselves, and they can see the darkness. There's no life in darkness, and their situation is dead because they speak death into it every given day. How many people have struggled with believing Christ, and now your struggle will be kind of ended? You won't struggle too much longer, will you? I bet you won't struggle now. Because to not believe, to not have faith, is to not agree with the words of life itself. So now these things who seek rulership over mankind are certainly all around you. You know what they've been doing? Taking over. This is why the Lord said, pray for your leaders. My Lord, now you may not believe this, but I tell you this. Most of your leaders that you thought you knew are dead, and something else has taken their place. How'd that happen? What you're doing is cursing something that's already cursed, but you're blaming the flesh for it. And the Lord already warned you, and the apostles did too. The weapons of your warfare are not carnal, because what you're actually fighting has stepped into the host of a human. The human has no recollection of what's within him, and then in some cases, they're not even there anymore. But they've been totally taken over. You see, it's the difference between possession and a person being totally taken over, or a person being replaced. Hugo Chavez said, it's so funny, he was terrorized when he said it. He said, hey, I want to be known as a human being. Why did he say that? Because he knew. He said there are leaders in the world that walk with human skin. They are not human. He said this with a terrorized face. Folks, he told you the truth and nobody listened to him. He's not the only one that said that. He said he wanted to be known as a human being, as a person. Yes, he made mistakes and did bad things, but he said, I want to be known as a human being, not one of them. And he told people about that. And you know what people did? They ignored it. But guess what's going to happen? When they unmask themselves in view of mankind, Christians are going to be sick to their stomach because they supported something of darkness. How could they not discern that darkness? How could a Christian support a demon in the flesh? That's what they're going to find out, and they will not be able to wash the blood off. They're going to find out they're not as spiritual as they thought. That's going to be a very bad day. The hearts of many will sink into the ground. Disgust will cover them, and the blood will not come off of their hands. They will be guilty as charged for fully supporting a demon. Lord have mercy. That's what's happening right now. That's what's in charge of many folks right now. People totally, and you know what's a shame? Christians still don't believe these spiritual entities can ever do that. They scarcely believe in possession. And I tell you again, the proof is this. If you see a person walking around defeated, depressed, and everything else, that's your brother who's in trouble. When you are consistent in your joy of life, and you do seek wisdom, knowledge, and understanding from the source of life, you're on your way. The situations of this world should never maneuver you. Nor should your environment have mastered you, but you must be master over your environment, which is to overcome all things in your life. Circumstances and everything else should never change you. You are of spirit of the light. How can anything of darkness overcome you? I hope through that statement, certain people's, I challenged your faith, challenged you not to lean upon your flesh or your own understanding, but to say, oh no, Lord, I can't be wrong in this. Not to trust every voice that comes into your head, not even to trust every confirmation that comes within you, but to seek the Lord and the good truth, the real truth of all things. Walk in the words of Christ, not picking and choosing, but eat everything on the plate. Eat everything on the plate. There's no room for fear among a child of the light, because those things never had power over you in the first place. They trick you into destroying your own life. Can't you see it? You belong to the Lord, so you can only be tricked into destroying your own life. Stop being tricked. Follow your Lord and Savior with all of what you have. They have no power over you. They never had power over you. But they're tricking you into giving them power because you're thinking just like they do. That should make some of you sick. Oh no, I'm not going to think like they do. You become agents of them. They speak into your mind. It is your mind they can speak into. Your thoughts. They are of a great intelligence. They have ancient and a lot of wisdom. And they speak into the human mind. The Lord said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Take all that stuff out and put the Lord's wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in your mind, not according to what you think, but according to the truth. You've been sent here to win that war and to fight for somebody else, but how can you fight for somebody else if you're in bondage of darkness? We need to break out of this bondage so that we can stand before all of the things, or some of the things we discussed today, happen. Because when they happen, that's when the true fighting and the warfare begins. You know they will surface during this war. Like vultures, they're going to come and unmask themselves. The beast kingdom are those things. And people will readily accept them because they have been conditioned to. Haven't you noticed that mankind is looking for something a little more than mankind? They have open arms ready for them to come, and that's exactly what they're going to get. If you're not careful, you'll condemn yourself that way. If you say anything of the dark is okay right now today, you will serve in the beast system. I hope you know that. Be a child of the light. Live in life itself. Gain the understanding and wisdom and knowledge of the Lord. Seek his words out. Meditate upon them. Apply them to your life. Walk in them. This struggle that you're going through can be ended very quickly. Stay away from darkness, which is negativity. I hope you guys remember that. Darkness is negativity. Darkness is, I can't do this or that. Darkness is, well, I just don't think. Darkness is speaking darkness, and darkness is death. You spoke today into its being by what you spoke yesterday. You took yesterday. You condemn this day. If you're in a bad mood or something like that, right? Something happens. I knew it was going to happen. You're speaking a perpetual death into your hour. Stop doing that. Children of light do not speak anything of darkness. There is no fellowship between light and darkness. And true darkness is simply negativity. Just like negative and positive, darkness is negativity. These things will unmask. They are the controlling powers. People will vote for them. I would that people would pray. I would that people would pray. Don't excuse yourself because of your flesh. Be more than flesh, please. Understand the purpose of your flesh and be more. But we are certainly in a time like no other. I want to say God bless each and every one of you. Who knows what today may bring? All of you all who are suffering in these storms and things of that nature, listen to me. The Lord is always with you. He's constantly aware of you. And you too walk with his word. Now we're in that time where we have to abandon many things in our lives to seek the truth, to seek the word, and to walk with the word, and to have no fellowship with darkness. Darkness is negativity. Have no fellowship with negativity. Okay? Have no fellowship with negativity. All right? All right? No fellowship with negativity. That doesn't mean think positive. That means trust the words of the Lord. Walk in his words. His words are life. This isn't philosophy where you speak like everything is going to work. That's foolishness because everything is not going to work. But when you say you can't believe, you know, all this kind of stuff, well, I'm going to do this because I don't trust. What you're really saying is when you have no faith, you're saying, well, I don't trust what Jesus wrote. You become an agent of darkness itself. That negativity is darkness. It's in contrast to the words of Christ. It is the opposite. All right? God bless you all. And you guys have an awesome, productive, and a day of life. Do that. God bless each and every one of you.